like crying and shaky hands, and that's my brand, but I'm not going to hold it against you. So I'll give you a trigger warning that I have discovered over the years that what I find really funny, other people find really dark and depressing and even bleak. I do want you to know that when I chose this piece, I thought it would be light and humorous way to end the night. Upon further thinking, maybe not. It's going to go really bad or really okay. This piece is called Man's Search for Meaninglessness in a Meaningful World. Or a donkey walks into a bar and a bartender says, "Why the long face?" And the donkey goes, "Yee-haw!" Which translates into human, "Because I'm a goddamn donkey, do you even know what it's like for a donkey in this world?" Me to my therapist. It just feels like some days I get up and I know that there's going to be a test, and then I go through the whole day waiting for that test, and then I think there's no test, but then I get to the end of the day and realize I failed that test. And then I'll wake up the next morning and I'll fail that test again and again and again, and I'll wake up, and really the only thing that keeps me going anymore is the fact that one day I know that I will not wake up, and then I won't have to think about every depressing face that watch me gets an F every day. My therapist. Well, that seems like a little personal growth for you, Ben. That's a good place to end on. Man walks into a bar. Bartender says, "Why the long face?" Man says, "I don't know. My brother killed himself when I was young, and that broke my mother's heart, and she went on really depressed for a long time before she had a heart attack and died. And that triggered my father to have a stroke, and he didn't die, but that put him in a wheelchair. And then my wife decided she couldn't put up with that bullshit anymore and left me. And oh, yesterday my dog died, which was the last thing I had of hers, but it was really a bummer." I guess what I'm trying to say is, who am I to complain? Bartender says, "Oh, okay." Join together, kids. It's called the Drevlo Drinking Game, the Poetry Edition. Dead brother, take a drink. Dead mother, take a drink. Ex-wife, take 3. Dead dogs, dig dogs, dig dogs. Drink, motherfucker, drink. Daddy issues. I'm not a man. Woo. Cries for help. I can't kill myself. Drink. Binge eat, binge drink, vomit, hurl, puke. Blackout, piss the bed, wash, rinse, repeat. Thanks for playing, everybody. Cheers. Drive home safe if you're still upright. 8th grade me, when he wrote his first suicide note, quoted the gambler, "You gotta know when to hold them, you gotta know when to fold them, you gotta know when to walk away, you gotta know when to die." My mother found this and freaked out for some reason and sent me to a therapist who let me fill out a lot of different forms to figure out if it was a real cry for help or if I was just looking for attention. My favorite form was the following: "If your depression was a color, what color would it be?" 8th grade Drevlo. Black. As black as my dark, dark soul. If it had a shape, what shape would it be? It would be a hole. A black hole. If it had a size, the blackness of my eternity would not be measured. If it had a sound, it would be the awkward silence of all joy and laughter being sucked out of a room full of people every time I step into it. If it had a surface texture, it would be like nothingness, like drifting in a black hole and not being able to do anything about it and just floating there for the rest of your life and feeling nothing. If it had a strength, It would be like a giant monster with tentacles, like anacondas and boa constrictors combined times 10, and it would wrap around you and suck you down to the black hole of its mouth, where you would sit there for the rest of your eternity, dying and being digested. It would be sort of like that scene in Star Wars Return of the Jedi with the pit, with the tentacles and the teeth and the tongue and the black hole and being there for eternity. But you wouldn't get saved because you are no Lando Calrissian. And if you are Lando Calrissian, you would still not be saved because you cannot betray your best friend Han Solo and still have him risk his life to save you from the misery of your own making. Ladies and gentlemen, if maybe you go by that certain somebody tonight and sidles up next to you at the bar, try this one on them. Hey baby, I like my lovers like I like my black holes. Black holes. They say boys regret all the girls they didn't sleep with. Girls regret all the boys that they did sleep with. I regret all of you and everything. Wah wah. Me to my ex-wife. Text. Hey honey, I just wrote another poem about you and how you agreed to love me till death do us part, and then you decided after 15 years that you were going to shoot yourself if you had to stay with me any longer. My wife. New phone. Who dis? What's the deal with the Bermuda Triangle? Does nobody ever disappear anymore? Asking for a friend. You know what's real depressing is you get to New Year's and then you make all your resolutions to not be a fat bastard and miserable that whole year, and then you have to go back to your psychiatrist and they make you fill out that form first thing about your medical history and your family medical history, and you have to think about all the things that happened and all the things that are gonna happen. And then all I want to do is cross out the whole thing and turn on the back and say, nature versus nurture be damned. My DNA says I should be dead by now. Why am I still living? I have real questions that Dr. Van Pernis has no answers for. Instead, I just write high cholesterol, high blood pressure, anxiety, depression, heart attack, stroke, depression, suicide, dead, they're all dead, early to bed, early to dead, except for me.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sorry, I should have not done that.
Do I just gotta whether to laugh or cry?
That's my brand.
But I love it.
You know, it's a real eye-opener, though, when you do go back and you get on the scale and the nurse moves that square this way and that way, and it goes from 250 to 275 to 300 and then suddenly you realize that you are not going to be able to hang yourself in the heat of the moment because it would require planning and proper equipment and hand craftsmanship that if you already possessed those things, you wouldn't have to kill yourself in the first place. We need to really come up with a better term than self-flagellating that doesn't sound so much like self-flatulating. If for no other reason than when you're at your therapist and you're trying to confess the sexual gratification you get from whipping yourself, and all he can fixate is how much fiber you have in your diet. No, but real, I read an article the other day that said we can't call it committing suicide anymore because that is traumatizing and triggering to people who've had loved ones do this type of thing. You wouldn't say, I committed self-murder, would you? And you wouldn't say, oh, I committed a heart attack, would you? But I don't know, as a loved one who had somebody who shot himself in the next room from me, he seemed pretty committed. And as somebody who had a mother who went around for years being heartbroken before she finally had a heart attack and died, she seemed pretty fucking committed too. I mean, I guess you had to know my mother. You know, these poems don't come from nowhere. Most of them I end up dictating into my phone when I'm walking my dogs in the morning. And I'll say things like, "Hey Siri, take a note." And I'll say things like, "Write poem about dead mother." And then Siri will say, "Write home about dead mother." And then I'll just imagine my father getting the first letter ever from me ever, and that letter being a passive-aggressive poem about how much of a bummer your mother was and how angry you were when she committed that heart attack. And I just laugh and laugh and laugh. But no, really, I feel like I'm at a real juncture in my life where on one track I can imagine just going on and going on, and eventually I turn a real corner and I don't even think or look back. But on the other track, I can imagine 2 Tuesdays from now having one too many mental breakdowns, ending up in Saskatchewan and becoming a Zamboni driver, and one day accidentally driving over myself and smearing all my heart and soul all over that cold, long, smooth as hell hockey rink. Those are the 2 options I have. But no, all kidding aside, I do sometimes these days imagine that there is a future. Not a future with hopes and dreams. I will never say I have a new lease on life. But sometimes I think that maybe I can build up a group of friends that can be my support group. A group of humble, stoic, yet loving master ninja spy assassin monks who will teach me their ways and their finishing maneuvers, and sometimes the wonder that will come with living one moment to the next and letting everything wash over me. And with that, I feel like sometimes there might come actual meaning and actual purpose. And eventually, I don't know, maybe it'll come with grappling hooks and ninja stars and katana swords. And maybe if I make it long enough, all of us together will come to world domination.